If this were truly irrelevant, it would not need to disappear so completely. Things that don't matter usually fade. Things that threaten a system tend to vanish. There is a plant labeled a weed that outperforms modern detox greens on the very function they advertise. It does so quietly, without branding, without campaigns, without asking to be believed. Kale sits on shelves. Spinach fills smoothies. This plant is pulled from the ground and thrown away. This requires no conspiracy, only incentives. Because the question is not whether it works. The question is why almost nobody remembers it. Not why it lost. Not why it was replaced. But why an entire culture stopped noticing something that still grows everywhere. Once something delivers results without creating dependence, it stops fitting the system designed to manage choices, purchases, and habits. And once you notice how completely it vanished, long before it became something to remove, this plant was something to consult. In 19th century American medicine, dandelion was not fringe. It appeared in official dispensatories listed alongside substances physicians were trained to recognize, prepare, and prescribe. Medical texts described it plainly, not as folklore, not as belief, but as a functional botanical with specific uses tied to digestion and fluid regulation. European pharmacopoeias recorded the same plant under the same Latin name. Different countries, different languages, the same classification. What matters here is not nostalgia, it is continuity. Dandelion did not enter medicine through rumor. It entered through repetition, observation, and standardization. The slow process by which something earns a place in formal reference. Later, modern regulators did not erase that record. They narrowed it. Agencies like the European Medicines Agency and Health Canada still recognize dandelion as a traditional herbal medicinal product. Not a cure, not a miracle. A defined substance with defined historical use. That distinction matters. It means the plant did not fail a scientific test. It passed one kind, then became unnecessary for another, because systems change what they reward. When medicine moved toward isolated compounds and patented delivery plants that could not be standardized into a single molecule, lost relevance. Not because they stopped working, but because they stopped fitting the direction of progress. This was a choice, not an accident. Knowledge that depends on context ages poorly in systems built for precision, especially when it cannot be owned. So the record remained. The citations stayed intact. The plant was still there. What changed was not the evidence, it was the incentive to remember it. And once authority stops repeating a name, silence does the rest. Dandelion does not work through mystery. It works through function. Every part of the plant participates in a simple sequence. Bitter compounds stimulate digestion. Bile flow increases. Fluid movement follows. This is not a detox claim. It is physiology. The leaves act primarily on fluid balance. They increase urinary output, not by forcing the kidneys, but by shifting electrolyte handling in a way the body recognizes as safe. The root works differently. It interacts with digestion at the level of the liver and gallbladder. Bile production and release increase. Fats are processed more efficiently. Waste products move along established pathways. Nothing here is aggressive. Nothing overrides the body. The chemistry is mild, and that is the point. Inulin and related fibers in the root feed intestinal bacteria, not to cleanse the gut, but to support the organisms already there. When digestion improves and elimination becomes regular, systems downstream follow. Skin changes, appetite adjusts, energy stabilizes, not because the plant adds something foreign, but because it removes friction from processes already in place. This is why the plant never required precise dosing, and why it resisted pharmaceutical translation. There is no single active molecule to isolate, no switch to flip. Its effect emerges only when the whole structure remains intact. Leaf root bitter profile fiber timing. That makes it biologically coherent and commercially awkward. Modern nutrition favors interventions that can be targeted, intensified, and scaled. Dandelion operates in gradients. It assists rather than commands. That difference is not a flaw. It is a mismatch. This outcome followed design, not chance. Systems optimized for speed and control reward substances that act fast and predictably. Dandelion acts slowly and reliably, and without requiring replacement, which explains why it stayed biologically relevant while becoming structurally inconvenient, and why understanding how it works leads inevitably to the question of where it stopped fitting. The shift did not begin in medicine. It began in landscaping. After the Second World War, the American lawn became a symbol, uniform, predictable, controlled. Grass was no longer just ground cover. It was a standard to maintain. Plants that behaved differently became problems by definition, not because they harmed people, but because they disrupted uniformity. Dandelion did not fit the model. It grew where it was not planted. It returned after removal. It ignored boundaries, so a new category expanded around it: weeds. Once that category existed, a market followed. Homeowners were sold solutions, chemicals designed to remove broadleaf plants while sparing grass, applied seasonally, repeated annually. The loop was simple. A lawn develops variation. A product promises control. The control requires maintenance. Maintenance creates dependence. What falls outside the loop is anything that grows without permission. Anything edible. Anything useful that cannot be monetized through repeat treatment. Dandelion became invisible in this system, not banned, not argued against, just excluded. Because a plant you can eat that returns every year without planting and requires no purchase to exist cannot be integrated into a model built on recurring inputs. This outcome followed incentives, not intent. The system rewarded surfaces that needed management. It ignored organisms that did not. Over time, the language adapted. Lawn care replaced land stewardship. Weed control replaced observation. And with that shift, a medicinal plant did not need to be disproven. It only needed to be renamed. Once the name changed, the behavior followed. Pull it, spray it, erase it, not because it failed, but because it refused to participate. And when usefulness cannot be converted into demand, it is quietly removed from view. What remains is a landscape that looks controlled and a memory that slowly thins. At no point was this plant forbidden. There was no ban to protest, no warning label to ignore. It remained legal, visible, everywhere. What changed was attention. We were never told it was dangerous. We were simply taught it was irrelevant. The decision happened quietly through habits rather than laws. We learned to value surfaces that look managed. We learned to trust solutions that come in containers. We learned to treat anything unplanned as a flaw. And we accepted that lesson without asking what was being traded away. Because once you stop seeing a living system as food or function, you begin to see it only as interference. At that point, removal feels responsible, even virtuous. This is the uncomfortable part. Not that the plant was mislabeled, but that the label worked. It worked so well that usefulness became invisible. Edibility became irrelevant. History became unnecessary. We were never prevented from knowing this. We were simply never encouraged to notice. And when a society stops asking why something keeps returning on its own, it usually means the system has already decided what it prefers to replace it with. This is not about blame. It is about recognition. Because once you realize how easily attention can be redirected, you start to question what else disappeared the same way. Restoring this knowledge does not mean romanticizing the past. It means correcting the frame. Dandelion does not need to be rebranded as a miracle. It only needs to be described accurately. In formal references, it was never positioned as a cure. It was categorized by function: digestive support, fluid regulation, metabolic assistance through ordinary pathways. Those descriptions still exist. They were not overturned. They were narrowed. Modern systems prefer interventions that can be isolated, intensified, and measured quickly. Whole plants operate differently. Their effects depend on context, timing, and integration with the body's existing processes. That makes them difficult to standardize and difficult to scale, so the language shifted. What was once described in terms of function became dismissed as vague. What required observation became labeled imprecise, and what could not be reduced to a single compound lost priority. This was not a scientific correction. It was an administrative one. The plant did not change. The questions changed. Instead of asking how it fit within a living system, the system asked whether it could be extracted, packaged, and repeated on demand. When the answer was no, attention moved on. This reframing matters because it exposes the real divide, not between natural and modern, but between knowledge that adapts to systems and knowledge that requires systems to adapt to it. Dandelion belongs to the second category. It functions without permission, without schedules, without replacement cycles, which forces a more difficult question. Not whether it deserves a place again, but whether the structures we built still recognize value that cannot be controlled. And once that question is on the table, the next choice becomes harder to avoid. This is where the choice appears. Not between old and new, not between natural and modern, but between systems that require constant input and systems that function with less. Dandelion does not demand loyalty. It does not promise transformation. It does not lock anyone into a cycle. It simply exists where conditions allow it to exist, and offers what it offers without negotiation. The modern alternative is different. Products that replace observation. Treatments that require renewal. Solutions that work only when purchased again. None of this is accidental. It is how incentives are aligned. When value is tied to repetition, anything that works quietly and consistently becomes inconvenient. So the decision is not whether to bring anything back. It is whether to recognize what was never truly removed. A landscape can be managed, or it can be understood. A body can be overridden, or it can be supported. Both paths are efficient in their own way. Only one reduces dependence over time. This is not a call to reject progress. It is a reminder that progress selects for certain outcomes and leaves others behind. Dandelion stands as evidence of that selection, not as a symbol, as a record. What you do with that record is not prescribed here. There is no recommendation to follow, no instruction to adopt, only the recognition that some things disappear, not because they failed, but because they never learned how to sell themselves. And once you see that pattern, you start to notice it repeating in places far beyond a lawn. Dandelion is not unique in this pattern. It is simply easy to recognize, because it grows in plain sight, because it never fully left, because the decision surrounding it was quiet. But the same logic appears elsewhere, in foods once considered staples, in materials once considered sufficient, in systems that functioned without constant replacement. Each time the transition looks similar, a thing works, then a system forms around managing it. Then the system rewards alternatives that require ongoing input. Over time, usefulness becomes secondary to compatibility. What integrates easily survives. What resists integration fades from attention. Not erased, just unattended. This is how knowledge disappears in modern societies, not through prohibition, but through misalignment. What remains is a record scattered across footnotes, monographs, and habits no longer taught. Fragments of function without a narrative to hold them together. Dandelion is one of those fragments. So are many others. They are not waiting to be rediscovered. They are waiting to be recontextualized. Once you recognize the structure that removed one, you begin to recognize it removing others. Not as an enemy, as a filter. And the more clearly that filter comes into view, the harder it becomes to believe that what remains is always what worked best.